Welcome, and thank you for joining us today to talk about Cayosoft's patent-pending instant Active Directory forced recovery technology. I'm McKenna. I work alongside the Microsoft experts here at Cayosoft. With us today, we have Chad Nichols, one of our system engineers here at Cayosoft, to walk you through our solutions. But before we get started, if everyone could take a moment to follow us on social media, you'll see here on the screen a QR code for each of your favorite social networks. With your phone's camera, you can scan the code and it will take you directly to our social pages. From there, you can follow or subscribe to stay up to date with our most recent news and industry information. Now that we've got all that taken care of, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Chad.
All right, thank you very much. So today we're going to be doing a pretty targeted demonstration. We're going to talk about our instant recovery within the product, and that's going to be our instant forced recovery and instantaneous recovery for those changes that do not require a full forced recovery. I haven't been hit by ransomware. Everything's still there, but somebody made a change and it was something I need to undo, and you can do that very instantaneously, very easily within the product. The product we're going to be talking about today, as was said just a moment ago, is Cayosoft Guardian. So let me switch over to my demonstration. And so what you see before you is Cayosoft Guardian. This is the homepage of the product. It is a fully hybrid aware product, and it's really keyed around protecting your environment, being able to detect potential threats or configuration settings, and hopefully help you to be able to mitigate those to prevent ever having some kind of a ransomware attack or some other attack. Change monitoring to watch for those changes in real time that happen on-prem in Active Directory and also in Office 365/Azure. So again, not only have a record of the things that changed, but also to be able to react to those changes and fix problems if somebody makes a mistake. We're all human and it does happen. And then the final piece, the forced recovery, which is what we're going to go over. So the main topic for discussion today is, how do I recover my Active Directory in the event of a full outage? I've been compromised with ransomware or some other mechanism has made Active Directory unavailable. Think of this as the nuclear option. It's gone. I have to get it back, and I have to get it back quickly. It's not just an object level recovery, it's a full AD outage. So we're going to go over that. We'll start with that first. And that's really, I think, the main thing for today. And then we'll also, again, talk about how to get some of those individual object changes recovered as well, both on-prem and cloud. So for forced recovery, Cayosoft as a company has been really from its inception all around hybrid. We want to fully encompass on-prem Active Directory for management, monitoring, protection, and also Azure/O365. So when it comes to that, we wanted to make sure that we extended that functionality to our forced recovery product. And so in doing that, what we've done is we've tried to embrace the cloud for both backup and recovery. So from a backup perspective, you have some additional options as a place to send your backups from a destination standpoint. If you have an on-prem network share or SAN storage or anything like that, we definitely support that. So for customers that do not leverage the cloud, you're not left out. We do understand not everybody is leveraging the cloud for everything today, but for those that do have that as a possibility, we do support both Azure Blob and Amazon S3 storage as a destination for your backups. That provides some really good immutability from a backup perspective because Active Directory does not know anything about that. Also, these are locations that cannot really be mounted anywhere on a server. So from a ransomware perspective, it'd be very difficult for a bad guy to encrypt your backups because they have no way to get to that backup to do the encryption. So it's not stored in a traditional fashion to where someone, even a good guy on the network, can get to mount it and encrypt those files. Also, from a backup perspective, we support encryption for the backup itself. So on the off chance a bad guy gets a hold of your backup, they can't do anything with it because it's going to be fully encrypted. And unless they have your decryption key, you really are protected from them taking that file and opening it up and having access to your organizational data. Because obviously that's not a good thing, and we want to make sure that the backup itself is fully protected, not only from a location basis, but also from them being able to open things up and read the data specifically. So once you've set up your backup location, now what do I want to do as far as a backup? Very simple to set up. You create a backup plan. You decide what DCs you would like to back up, when, and to where. Very straightforward technology. Most backup vendors, even in the past, that don't even understand AD. It's a very simple thing to do. I would just say, as a recommendation, minimum of 2 DCs per domain, just for redundancy's sake. But quite frankly, you can do one, you could do every single one. It's really up to you how you want to architect this, and we can help guide you through that if needed. Any and all backups can be written to one or more backup location, and most customers will take into account their network topology for this. So if I have data centers, across the globe, maybe I want to have multiple backup plans because, servers in the Americas go to an America-centric data center, ones in Europe go to a European data center, etc. And some of that is for network, some of it's for privacy concerns. There's a lot of different things that drive that, but our product is very flexible to allow you to do one or more backup plans, as many as you need, quite frankly, to handle both compliance, regulatory, and network topology issues. Once you've configured your plan, you just basically give it a date and time, how often you want the backup to occur. It will install the backup agent onto the DC, perform the backup, and write that backup then to the destination. Pretty straightforward. One thing I will say is that the only thing we are backing up is Active Directory components. We do not grab anything OS related. That's where viruses, that's where ransomware lives, and we don't want to take a chance when we do recovery that we replicate that ransomware back into the recovery process, because then that would be a bad situation to get yourself into. And with a lot of traditional backup vendors, you do get into that kind of a situation because you'll get the system state back and some potential OS files that are not needed for an Active Directory recovery, and then that way you potentially reinfect your system. And we don't want to do that. Recovery is really where Cayosoft is, I'd like to think, a market leader, and we do have functionality that is unique to us. We have patent-pending technology around instant recovery, and we call it instant because it's a different way to look at recoveries. With a traditional recovery, you will build an operating system on a server somewhere, whether that's physical or virtual, apply the OS, give it an IP address, username, password, and then perform the recovery. Everything that you have to do really is at the time of the recovery, and you have to do it yourself. There's no real automation around building that environment. So what we've done is with our technology, now we will allow you to create what we call a standby forest recovery plan. And what you do with this is you make some decisions around what are the servers that I need to get back as quickly as possible to be able to wholly rebuild my environment. We want to make sure that this is fail-safe, bulletproof, and again, instant. And you'll see the instant here in a moment. So not going to, I'll be sure to show you, what that means. So basically what you do is create a recovery plan for standby forest. You choose the domain controllers that are required, again, to bring yourself back as quickly as possible from a full outage situation. So AD is gone, everything's encrypted, whatever that scenario is, I'm full down. So you determine what DCs you'd like to bring back. You have some options when it comes to how to bring those domain controllers back from a recovery. If you have a backup of the DC, you have it set up in the backup plan. We are backing that up directly. You can recover it from a backup. However, not every backup plan may have every DC. So if you need to recover a DC you have not backed up, we can do a promotion from backup, and basically that will automate the recovery of a server, even if it has not been backed up by our product. And quite frankly, we can recover, if needed, the entire forest from a single domain controller backup if needed. Another choice that you have is remove metadata automatically. In my past, I went through a ransomware outage and recovery, and this was something that would have greatly reduced the time to recovery for me. I didn't have a product like this at all, and I had to basically remove the metadata manually for 129 or so domain controllers. So cleaning it from AD, sites and services, DNS, everything. And it took a lot of time, and I had to make sure everything was gone, because if it's not, then when I try to do repromotions after the fact, that's going to cause problems. So it really took a lot of extra effort. And with this product, for those servers that you do not want to recover as part of your recovery plan, you can choose to have it automatically clean up that metadata, and it really will help from a recovery standpoint. It'll speed things up tremendously, because when you do the actual recovery, chances are your environment's not going to be the same as it was prior to your outage. You're going to have new subnets, new scopes, everything from the network topology level, and probably even a firewall level are going to change. So you may start from a minimal amount of servers and then build out from there. Once you've determined what DCs you'd like to recover, now what I need to do is determine where that recovery is going to take place. Because we understand the hybrid world, and because I have linked my AWS and or my Azure subscription with the tool, I can now leverage both of their IaaS services to build my environment for me automatically. So therefore, I just need to say, okay, what location, what prefix name, machine size, how am I going to access those VMs post-outage, post-recovery. With Azure, as far as access goes, you can do a public IP address, and you can also do a Bastion. So we will automatically create a Bastion instance. For AWS, they don't have Bastion. That's more of a Microsoft thing. So for them, it would be public IP address. And you can also choose it to, hey, do not configure anything from a network standing as far as remote access goes, and let the network team take care of that. That is totally up to you. It's completely up to the customer. And we have folks that do, various things, just depending on their topology and security team. Once you've determined those things, then you set a schedule for how often you want the recovery to take place. So this is where we have a patent on this process. And now instead of having to manually rebuild my environment and do a recovery if I'm attacked and for testing, now this is going to be done for me every single day. So every day, in my case, at 12:30 p.m., the software will spin up new VMs in Azure, the networking, do all the restore. Every time it's going to be on completely brand new OS, and always from the latest backup that took place. And I don't have to do a thing. And so the only other thing that I really have to decide is, okay, how many copies of Active Directory do I want at any given time for redundancy? The default's 2. It can be 200 if you'd like, but it's really up to you. So the process here, when this occurs, we're going to deploy the VMs, the recovery site in Azure or AWS. Works the same way for the most part with both. Install the agent, do all of the steps to get the operating system ready. Microsoft and AWS both supply server templates out there that we can easily call and get all of that stuff done for you automatically. Again, nothing manual about it. Every single site and or resource group that is created is done segregated. So there's no peering or anything between the two. So I could literally have, 100 different copies of my Active Directory out there and even have all servers powered on at the same time. And you're not going to have any crosstalk with traffic. Everything's just going to be basically an island into itself until you do the steps to actually cause that peering and do all of that. And we'll talk about that here in a sec. So it deploys the site, and then everything else that's part of the recovery is performing the steps necessary to recover AD in a fully supported manner for Microsoft. If you take their recovery guide and you basically program that and make that fully automated, that's what we do. So, updating the RID pool, seizing roles, cleaning up that metadata again, if you choose to do so, configuring any DNS, all of the things that are required to have a fully recovered forensic copy of your Active Directory on another server. And then at the end of the process, we shut the servers down. So if I were to go over here and look at my Azure resource groups, I could see I have a few here. And so this has all been done automated for me. I didn't do a thing for these. So it created my VMs, my networking, everything. And now if I want to do testing, all I have to do is power these on and check that Active Directory looks in exactly the way it should and everything has been recovered successfully. If I want to do an actual recovery for DR, this is where the instant part comes into play. As I mentioned earlier, if you're doing a typical recovery with other recovery vendors, you have to build the VMs yourself or the server yourself. You have to install the operating system. You have to do the agent install, and then you have to kick off the recovery. Well, if you're in the middle of a down situation, you don't really know, even if you've tested it 100,000 times, that a backup recovery is really going to work in the heat of the moment until you hit run and it goes. So in most cases, yeah, that's okay, and maybe it will work. But there's a lot of steps that are involved there, and if you, for example, are running a VMware environment, and I know this because again, I've been through a recovery, our original VMware environment, number one, we had to keep it for forensic reasons, even though it was powered off. But basically, once that ransomware is in there, you can no longer use any of those, VMware networks or any of the stuff that you had in that original setup. And same with Hyper-V, same with physical. So now you have to create a brand new, VMware host, Hyper-V host, whatever, and create a brand new environment. So there's time that's waiting for those teams. Then you have to put the OS on there, and then you have to do all of the steps to do a recovery. And then you have to hope that it works. With instant forced recovery, our recovery then works for you automatically every single day. So now if I have a actual outage, I've been hit with ransomware, AD, every single Microsoft server computer in my environment's gone because it's been encrypted and unavailable. I don't have to build anything. It's already done. All I have to do now is work with the network team to come out and modify my VNet. So now it is routable, peerable. I can send production traffic over this for people to get logins and power on my DCs. I don't have to hope that the recovery worked because it already worked. I already got notification that, yeah, it was a success. So there's nothing for me to do except fix the VNet, power on the servers, and guess what? AD is up and operational. And that is why we call it instant recovery, because it doesn't get much faster than hitting the power button and logging in. And when you're in the heat of the moment and doing an actual ransomware recovery, the quicker that AD's back, the quicker everyone else can do what they need to do. Because until AD's back, you know, your SAP teams and your other file print teams, all those applications that rely on AD for authentication, they cannot start until AD is recovered. If I'd have had something like this when I had my outage, the first time the CIO come in and asked how it was going, if I could have just said, hey, AD's back, we're up, I'm just in assist mode at this point, man, that would have saved me a lot of, let's just say, headache and gray hair. But it's really around getting AD back quickly, instantaneously. You already know it worked because you're already recovered. You don't have to do any kind of restore in the heat of the moment. You're already restored. And if there is ever anything that happens and you have a problem with a backup or recovery, hey, you're going to get a message that lets you know that that occurred, and you can troubleshoot that and fix it. From a testing standpoint, a lot of companies don't test DR enough because it's such a pain and a big process. And I have experience with that as well. But that's a story for another day. But with this, I can at any time test this because I can spin these up at the same time production's running, even though it is a carbon copy of production and I don't affect production. I can come to right here at Guardian or in Azure, you know, select one of these and power on the machine. And once they're up, immediately I can do my testing. So it's very, very easy to test. You could do testing every day if you want. You could also do recoveries every day or every multiple times a day. It just really depends on how, I guess, the delta of your backup, how out of date you want your recoveries to be. And again, we can work with you on that, what makes kind of sense for your organization. But just to summarize, the instant recovery piece for Cayosoft Guardian Forced Recovery is really to help get you back up in the most efficient, quickest, painless way possible. And hopefully, you know, you can see that. And of course, we can talk about it in more depth in the future as well. So that's the kind of the forced recovery piece. The other piece I wanted to show today, just real quick, is the change monitoring and the instant recovery piece around individual object attribute changes. So hopefully you never have a full outage. But if you do, instant recovery is there for you. In the meantime, there's going to be changes that happen on a daily basis. There's going to be, you know, user updates, deletions, creations, everything in between. And so for that, that's where the change monitoring comes into play. So I can come in here, I can make you know, a change to an object. I can make a change to, you know, a group policy. I'll just make a quick edit here. Pick something different. Nope, that's already enabled, so let's do this one. How about that? And so what we'll see is the changes that will be reflected through the product. Before I hit refresh again, I want to note one thing. With the change monitoring piece of the software, this actually is agentless. We leverage connection accounts to monitor for changes. We look at the LDAP replication stream, and we also leverage Graph and REST APIs for the cloud. And so if a bad guy turns off your event logs, either on-prem or cloud, that does not make us go blind. We still see the changes. The only thing we really leverage the event log for is to discover the full picture. So as part of the change event, and once I hit refresh here, you'll see this, we pull in the actual event itself and make it a part of the record. So if I look at my finance change, where I made the change to that group, I want to see the property level changes. So this is what I would see directly from the replication stream. Looking at the general tab, now I see all of the other information that was brought in based on the event log. So who made the change, from where? And then this is, the actual event data. As you probably know, Active Directory's event logs roll over nonstop, multiple times a day, especially in a really, really large, complex environment. So this gives you longer storage for those forensics to be able to really look at these things and troubleshoot what happened. And as far as the properties, again, same thing with the GPO. I see what it was before, what it was after, and I think the guys have done a great job with showing the GPO changes in nice human readable format, what you would expect. And any change that's done to an attribute or a GPO can easily undo those changes by selecting them and clicking the rollback action and saying yes. So now what this is going to do is it's going to come in and it's going to reverse those changes, and I can see that reflected here, and I can also see that reflected here. And here. So it's basically fixed my mistakes, as it were. We do track everything that occurs as part of an individual change. So there are going to be times and a deletion event and other things are great examples. Here's one I like to show because this was just an innocent error. Somebody make a change and accidentally removes the members of a group. Well, unless this group's being dynamically updated with our administrator product, this could be a really bad situation. In this case, it was licensing for first line responders. And so needless to say, when that occurred, things got really escalated very fast. So as part of the change, we recorded the change to the group and also the change to all the users. And this makes the forensics and finding out what went wrong very easy. So let's say that Carol called in and was the first one to notice this. Since we track all of the changes to every single object, both on-prem and the cloud, we can easily do a quick search, look at her latest change where she was removed from a group, and now we've linked all this information together. So right here, I don't have to go anywhere else. I can click right on that group, look at the change history of the group itself, and here we go. Here's the latest change, and there's all the users that were just removed. And now, right from here, I don't have to go and click and select 100 or 1,000 different users. I just could do rollback, say yes, and if I go back to my group here, it's fixed. And this is literally what happened, and we were able to help them quickly recover from this issue. So that was something that was obviously greatly appreciated, and they saw really the value of having a product like this because, when you're in a situation where it's just somebody making an honest mistake, it can be, almost as destructive as a bad guy doing something and making a serious mistake on purpose. So protecting us from ourselves, because we're all human, is never a bad thing. Another instant way to kind of recover from deletions. If I do a deletion here on this group, you're going to see that reflected here in the product, but it's going to reflect the whole change, right? I did one action, which was this delete, but that of course affected a ton of other objects. So any nested groups, nested users, members of, The owner information, managed by property, all of these things were updated as part of this one change. And because we have that information, we can completely rebuild that object when it's recovered. One other thing I'll mention real fast, because I've been kind of going past this pretty quickly. If this is an object that is a synchronized object and you do the recovery, there could be a delay between the time AD replicates and Microsoft Connect does its own synchronization. If you want to force that, you can select this checkbox and it will do the Delta sync immediately on your Microsoft Connect server. So you do not have to wait the 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever your time is for your sync. So for those times where you do need something very, very quickly and instantaneously, and that previous example with the users would be a perfect example. Get them out there now, so that way the licenses can be reapplied. Once I did the recovery here, now my group's back, all the members of, the managed by attributes, everything has been restored. We also do the full recovery, well, basically of all the objects, but if an object has a security context around it, for example, a computer object, we actually bring that back as well. So we try to be as complete as possible when we do our recoveries of our objects. We do also see those changes and recoveries in the cloud. So if I come out here and make some changes to Azure, we will see those changes again and be able to react to those changes. We do not just do users, groups, and roles. We cover off on a lot of Azure. We do cover those things, but we also will cover off on enterprise apps, and I'll give you a complete list here in a moment. But conditional access policies, named locations, a lot of more coverage for things in the cloud than I think really any other vendor does today. And actually, we do want to have to. Let's do that. That's fine. So when these things are seen in Azure, you're going to get the same type of change monitoring log that you get with the on-prem. Another thing that I've not mentioned, but I need to call out is with this product, and here it comes, Guardian supports alert and reports to be sent to email and also directly to Teams. And that integration is built into the product itself. So any team or channel can get any alerts or report. It just needs to be configured within the product to send it to that particular team. And that's great if you have, one team that cares about Active Directory, another team that cares about Office, or maybe one team that only cares about Exchange. Being able to segregate those alerts to give them to the teams that care and keep the spam away from the teams that do not is really nice. But I did get my team's alerts, and then here are my change records as well, including my conditional access. Now that these have been seen, again, I can do that undo action, roll these back, and we'll basically fix those. So if I come back to Azure, and sometimes the conditional access policy is really, really fast. Sometimes it's a little lag, but this will fix in a moment. Let me look at my privileges. Notice this is no longer privilege, so I've been removed from that role, and the conditional access policy will be reflected momentarily. One thing that is interesting with Azure is because we don't control the replication process of that. So this could take 10 seconds. It could take 60. I'll check on it in a minute just to show you that it actually did work. But in the meantime, one thing I want to mention too is everything I've done so far has been manual as far as that rollback action. So you do have the ability to automatically and instantaneously roll back changes for those types of objects maybe that need a little more protection. So for that, I've set up this group. I'll just make some changes to this group. So what I've done in the tool is I've set up a specific query for this group. And basically it looks for any change to this group in AD. This is a synchronized group, so I don't care about what happens in Azure because everything's controlled in Active Directory. If it was in Azure only or Office only, I could look at Office only, if I'm doing group writebacks. But it's going to show everything that was done to the group. So here's my changes that I just made, including the membership changes. What I've done though is after I created my alert, I also turned on what's called automatic rollback. So now I don't have to come in here and click rollback and say yes, and click rollback and say yes, and do all that manual stuff. So for things that are can be defined that need to be fully protected, hey, there's a change control that's required to make a modification to this, set up automatic rollback, and that will help you there. And if there is a need to make a legitimate change, add the user account for the person that's making the change, whatever their admin account is for this. And then basically that makes them exempt from the rollback piece. Just make that part of the change process. And then when you're done, remove them here and you're fully protected again. But that really can help for those types of changes that occur that you don't want to have to get woken up in the middle of the night if this privilege group or this user account or this conditional access policy or something gets modified and you didn't know about it. Speaking of conditional access policies, there we go. Now one condition selected again. Again, Microsoft, they control the replication, so it is what it is. We don't really have much control over that, but it did get taken care of. It's still pretty quick, and again, I didn't have to do anything manually in the admin center. Guardian did it for me. The last thing I will mention, just so you guys see it, that for Azure, for our change monitoring, today, these are the types of changes and that we watch for in Azure. And this is ever expanding. So as we are able to add new types of objects and changes that we can look for, we're going to add that here. And if it's in this list, it's not only seen in your change history, but it's also available for the rollback. And that even includes deletions. And that includes deletions for objects that do not have a recycle bin in the cloud. If you have a conditional access policy deleted, for example, we can actually roll back that deletion. And what we'll do is create a brand new conditional access policy with all of the same settings. If it's a user group, enterprise app registration, things like that, we can leverage the recycle bin to pull that back. So all your security is still intact. But if it's not there, we can still recover it. And that's really cool. So instant forest recovery, get your forest back as quickly, as painless as possible, fast. Give the other teams the ability to do the rest of their recoveries post AD much quicker. And again, save some gray hair. In the meantime, as changes are made in the environment, respond to those changes, record them, undo them if needed, either instantaneously through the automatic rollback or manually through manual rollback. And then the threat detection, which we're not going to cover today, is again helping you prevent those bad actors from coming into your environment in the first place. I think we've pretty much covered everything on the agenda, so I am going to turn it back over to McKenna at this point. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chad. All right. Well, today we showed you just a piece of what we do. So I'd like to briefly review our integrated suite of products. Chad did a great job covering our recover section and a bit of our monitor section as well. But our solutions were specifically designed as a one-stop shop for managing, monitoring, and recovering your Microsoft directories. These three areas dovetail together to create a comprehensive offering to protect and secure complex hybrid AD environments without the hassle of multiple disconnected systems or complicated, outdated legacy tools. From the administrative perspective, using granular roles and rules, you can efficiently manage and control your environment, all while increasing efficiency through automation, reducing errors, and eliminating potential vulnerabilities. Next, with change monitoring and threat detection, you can stop hackers before they have a chance to act instantly, or as Chad mentioned, even automatically rolling back malicious changes or mistakes. And then finally, recovery, which we covered today. Think of this as your insurance policy for when the worst happens. When your AD goes down and you need to be able to get back online fast, regardless of the scenario. This enables you to reduce the costly impacts caused by AD outages, including employee downtime, lost sales, and even detrimental effects to your company's reputation. While we didn't cover all of these offerings today, we did want to provide you ways to get more information. You'll see here a few quick links for the Cayosoft website. Should you have any additional questions, you can visit cayosoft.com/question. If you'd like to schedule a personalized demo or get our free trial, you'll see our links here as well. We also have a QR code on the screen that you can scan with your phone's camera, and it'll take you to the demo request page. And of course, for more information about Cayosoft and our solutions, feel free to visit cayosoft.com. Well, that concludes our presentation today. Thank you for your time and have a great day.